So tell us about the G-Sync Surround. What'd you think? You have a discerning
So,
eye for color.
well, I mean, I sat down in front of it for a little bit. It was definitely cool. It might not be something that I would go that crazy and assemble, like, personally in my own home system. But that's just because I tend to just do single monitor gaming. But it was absolutely impressive to see it, A, work, and B, be able to do 3 monitor surround, triple SLI, and have G-Sync work, like, all at the same
And only
time.
have to use 3 video cards that cost $2,200.
Well, you do have to use 3 video cards. It's not just from a performance standpoint, but from a physically connecting 3 displays, right? Because they use DisplayPort, and there's only one DisplayPort port, on current NVIDIA GPUs. I hope they change that in the future. But even if they made a 3-port card, I wouldn't see just one card driving 3 of these displays, right? Because that's an awful lot of pixels to be pushing. But just to have that, just to have the surround type experience going, at the same time as G-Sync, it's really one of those things you absolutely have to see it in person. Like, there's no video that we have produced on PC Perspective that can equate to you sitting in front of a G-Sync panel. There's really just no comparison. There's no way to show it to you. It's like those TV commercials that try to show our TV has better yellow, it has yellow pixels and it makes your screen look so much better. And then they try to show you an example and you're watching like a 10-year-old television. So you can't.
That
tell.
has 3
Right.
sub-pixels.
Yeah, that
per
only
pixel.
has red, green, and blue. Yeah, but this TV has yellow, and look how much better it'll look. Well, if you can show me that well, then I don't need your television. That kind of thing.
Let's increase the saturation.
That's pretty much all they do. But
Yeah.
this is just a completely different experience. I mean, Josh, you've seen G-Sync in action, right?
No, yeah.
Well, CES.
Yeah, I think it's yes, it did. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it was not exactly in a controlled. But anyway, yeah, I have.
That's
and
true.
It does make a difference.
Yeah. Well, when you're actually sitting at one of those systems and actually using it and gaming on it, I mean, other things start to make a difference, right? Like, you actually should install your mouse driver. So if you have a higher refresh rate mouse, so that you actually get the higher refresh rate, because it's getting to the point where you would actually notice that difference, that sort of thing. Whereas before, the display was, waiting on a frame if you had VSync on, that sort of thing. If you're not doing those waits or pauses or getting your tearing, once you remove all those things from the equation, then it's a different result, right? It's other things start to play into the latency factor, and you start kind of keying in on those things, and it changes how the gaming experience is. But yeah, it was cool to see all of that work at the same time, and we actually had to use like a beta driver even to make it work. Like the NVIDIA had just made all that stuff work, like right before we recorded that event.
That's really cool. Well,
Yeah.
hopefully we'll be able to see more of these in person. Apparently, there's another a more cost-conscious, I believe, is it Acer, is bringing out another G-Sync monitor that should be a little bit more affordable for the common man. I think it's a 1080p unit. We're going to see and hear more about that soon. Moving along. The Intel Xeon E5 2600 V3 processor overview. Haswell EP up to 18 stinking cores. 18 cores? Really? Alan, have you played this as well?
With that particular? No, I didn't play with it personally.
Oh, but was this from IDF?
Let's see. That
Or
was
do we have one?
information came out about it during IDF, and then Ryan wrote this up, right? Is that what this one is? I believe.
Why do you
so.
ask me? I only work here.
Well, because I, as you'll see in what we're going to cover in the next little bit here, there's been awful lot of storage stuff I've been covering, so I haven't been able to look over Ryan's shoulder the whole time. But let me take a look at 18 cores. What the interesting part? Oh, I saw one of the slides from this. Yeah, is one of the interesting parts about this is probably the 4th or 5th picture in there. It is showing like how the ring buses actually work, like how these cores are going to communicate with each other when you have so many of them, right? It kind of starts getting a little bit tricky, right? Because you can only have PCI Express connected to so many of the cores. So now you have to do this kind of funky translation and like having like buffered switches between rings to be able to have the cores on one side talking to things that are only connected to the other cores that are on the other ring.
Yeah, it's essentially cache coherency in between so many cores. It's kind of like what AMD ran into with Hypertransport and why they developed, cohesive HT between, but there were still jumps and whatnot. And I imagine that a ring bus would improve that in ways, but also prove to be problematic in others, depending on how bidirectional it actually is. And boy,
it's
a lot of engineering.
It's a tricky thing to solve. There's actually some other stuff that we've seen at IDF as far as research projects that Intel is doing, and they were actually showing like something that could be repeated and it wasn't super secret. Other methods of interconnecting cores, right? Like there's methods that actually they had a really cool demo on that shows like a kind of like a routed structure to where
it's actually like the network fabric that C-Micro does, Intel does with their many independent cores, MIC. Is that what?
But this was like this was kind of a cool research idea. I think it actually has legs and we'll probably catch on at some point. But they were showing data routing that could occur between a hypothetical 256 cores. And what it was actually able to do was build up and break down these data paths and these data routes just across a matrix. And it was able to kind of intelligently do it. Like, I need to get data from this core to this core. And then it would build up kind of like a telephone switching, right? Except for really wide data paths to communicate between two devices and stuff. So it's a like kind of a really complicated thing, but I think the ring bus thing is going to stick around for at least another little while, right? It's getting more complicated because you can only have so many devices on that ring for it to be efficient. But yeah, I mean it's cool stuff. It still scales, at least for the time being. They just have to get over a couple speed bumps for the moment.
Interesting. Yep. We're gonna head on to IDF news since we're already on that particular trail. Intel announces core and processor lineup using Broadwell Y. Now, the Broadwell Y was supposed to be released a while ago. However, due to various reasons, this is now the first that we are seeing it. The Broadwell Y is the low power variant that goes from something like 4 watts SDP to 15 watts TDP, but that 15 watts is only in kind of a burst. These are dual core parts, hyper-threaded. What probably is most interesting is that Intel has really, really improved the graphics portion. If you take a look at the die shot of this particular product, and Ken, am I talking about the correct one? Yes. Yes, I am. Graphics takes up now 50% of the die. Where have we seen that before? AMD and their APUs. I think that people are really catching on that graphics, and especially compute, really does have some legs, and it's going to be more and more important as time goes on. And certainly we look at this and see how much they have spent in terms of transistor count and die size, that graphics and visual computing is going to be where it's at. I mean, Intel obviously has really pushed per thread and their instructions per clock and per thread performance is outstanding. And so we see parts like this, which really if you have a tablet or a mobile product, you're not going to need many more than 4 threads. But certainly with these Retina type displays and 25 by 16 that you hold in 8 to